Good day to you all, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about 5 underappreciated gems that I've barely played that I'll be adding to the spectrum. This is going to be a bit of a different video. Well, it's not really going to be that different, but it will be different in the sense that I've barely played any of these games, so I can't really talk about them in terms of like memories and what the game's about and stuff like that really. So we'll be jumping into the review pretty much straight away. I'll go through a couple of bits and pieces first and we'll jump straight into the review. So there won't be a lot of gameplay footage at the beginning, but what I'll probably do is cut away from the reviews a little bit early as I'm still reading them and put some gameplay footage on in the background then. It's just that obviously I don't have a wealth of experience with these games. That's kind of the point of this video. So anyway, without further ado, I want to shine a light on a few of the games that I've not played, because it's not really very fair, is it, to add all these games and then like only add the ones that I've played before. There's a lot of games out there that I haven't played that deserve their spot in the sun too. So here we go. Here's 500 appreciated gems I've barely played to add to the spectrum. Okay, so the first game we have is Deactivators, released in 1986 from Reactor UK. I don't actually think I know Reactor as a publisher, but they've probably had some games I can't remember at the moment. The game is described as arcade game, maze, maximum 1 player, and it released for £8.95, also on Amstrad CPC and Commodore 64. Average magazine score from free reviews, so not many, 91.67%. So there you go. It's a Sinclair user classic, a Your Sinclair mega game, and a ZX Computing Globella. So it all sounds very promising, doesn't it? And we're going to switch, as I said, straight to the review, because obviously I don't have much to say about these games, but I do like the look of this one. Nice and colourful as well, gotta say, looking at the screenshots. So this review is from Crash. I think most of these reviews were from Crash, if I remember correctly, this time around. I do try to go for the Crash reviews first. I always check them first, but sometimes I decide to go for other magazines. But I've found like using like the Your Sinclair and the Sinclair user ones, they tend to be a bit more jokey sometimes, really. And I know there's a time and a place for that stuff. Of course there is. I try and be as jokey as I can on these videos, but sometimes if I'm finding out particularly about new games, I want to know about the game. I don't want them to be cracking gags every 5 seconds, So that's just my reasoning anyway. Maybe I'm just a boring old sod. Anyway, let's read this review. It says, it's the graveyard shift in security room of a highly secret office complex. All the security guards are happily slumbering, unaware of the terrible fate that has overcome the building. Suddenly the smoke detectors go off, and as guards rub the sleep out of their eyes, the full horror of the situation slowly dawns on them. The buildings have been attacked by highly sophisticated terrorists. Bombs have been planted all over the place, set with time fuses. The time limit to the game is set by the fuses on the bombs. Normally the security services can cope with this sort of everyday occurrence and would just send in the security droids to sort things out and bang a few heads together. But things are getting out of hand. The terrorists have got into the central control data banks, reprogrammed the security droids and wrecked the computer. So there's nothing for it but to call in the Deactivators. These little chaps are a dedicated team of super droids controlled via an icon system in the lower display area, below the view of a pair of rooms. Pressing the fire key brings up 4 icons. Select a droid, throw, scan and return to the game. In scan mode, a cursor can be moved around a small plan of the building, displaying the contents of the rooms in detail. Select a droid allows the cursor to be moved around the plan screen and the droid selected. This droid can then be moved around from room to room. The main display reveals the room the droid is in and an adjacent room. Each of the 5 levels of the game is progressively harder. The first level is a simple 4x4 grid in which there are 3 bombs to be destroyed. Rooms are linked and many of them have several exits, although some have windows, transporters or poles which allow for vertical travel. Circuit boards can be found in some locations. The circuits have differing effects when they are moved to the computer room and plugged in. Force fields are deactivated, transporters initialized and lights turned on in dark rooms, for instance. Reprogrammed security droids are out to get the unarmed deactivators. The only way to kill a security droid is to get it to follow the deactivators around and fall through the floor a few times. Usually getting a bomb out of the building requires teamwork. Bomb gets picked up by one droid, thrown through a window to another droid. You should make sure that the other droid is ready to catch the bomb when it is thrown, as bouncing a bomb around tends to make it explode. The throwing system itself is a question of selecting the throw icon and then chucking the bomb, circuit board or whatever when the indicator reaches the angle desired. However, adjacent rooms tend to have different gravities or even totally different orientations presented on a screen upside down or sideways. Should a bomb explode, both the room and the clumsy droid are eliminated, which could mean the game becomes impossible to complete. So I think we're seeing maybe why I didn't play this when I was a kid, simply because, to me it sounds confusing. I'm sure when you play it, probably it's not as confusing as it sounds, but that sounds quite a complicated game to me, and I don't think I would have wanted to play that as a kid, to be honest with you. I would have wanted something a little bit more simple, but definitely I think now's the time to give this a go, because I think that I'm more into that kind of game now for sure. When I was a kid, probably not so much. to be honest with you. As well, like sports games, they have to do a lot of thinking in those. Let's read the scores. Control keys definable, joystick Kempston, interface 2, keyboard play effective, use of colour limited, seems quite colourful to me, but graphics good, perspective effects, sound tune on 128, the odd bleep on 48k, skill levels 2, screens 160, that's a lot. General rating, an impressive blend of strategy and arcade, use to computer 86, graphics 88, playability 79, getting started 69, that probably proves it's quite complex I guess. Predictive quality is 80%, value for money 78, and overall 85%, which I think means it just missed out on a crash smash, which is why that wasn't in the awards thing. Yeah, there's no sign of a crash smash there. Okay, we'll read the criticisms. No way can this be described as an easy game. Even the first level takes a lot of getting used to, but as long as you can master that, you'll really get into it. Some of the problems are neat and totally mind-blowing on the later levels, with the rooms at all angles and some dark. The icon-driven system can be another sticking point, but at least it means a complicated game can be controlled from a joystick. The graphics are well drawn and there are some jolly visual effects, like the bombs going off. It's rare to see a strategy game with so much care taken over the presentation. Games like this have never really appealed to me as they involve too much brain and pencil work. Graphically, Deactivators is unique. I've never seen a game quite like it. The droids are detailed and well animated, the rooms are drawn in neat perspective. The sound is disappointing, there are no tunes and the effects are limp. The game is very difficult to play even on the first level, though if you do persevere, it gets very rewarding when you finish a building. Very playable if you stick with it. Now and again, it's nice to see a game that does not involve shooting things. Deactivators is something of a strategy game, as you must plan all your moves perfectly beforehand. Just one slip could have explosive consequences. The graphics are simple and uncomplicated, as is the gameplay, although lobbing the bombs around does take a little practice. Explosions are well done with the screen shaking violently, but unfortunately the room in which the explosion takes place is totally devastated, making it practically impossible to complete that level. An ingenious game and a welcome change. Yes, I think definitely the reason why I wouldn't have played that is if I'd even given it a go, I probably would have found it too complicated for me back then. Maybe not complicated so much as difficult, and I probably would have given up and gone and played like Target Renegade or something, you know what I mean? It's like, it would have been like that. Well, obviously a year later I would have played Target Renegade because this came out a year before it did, but I would have played Renegade, there we go, that's probably a better comparison. But yeah, it looks a good game, and I think now I'm a bit more of a strategy head. I think this is definitely one I would give a go now, so definitely a good idea to add this to the Spectrum. Let me know in the comments if you've played it before, I really would be interested to know. Game number 2 is Bloodax, released in 1985 by The Edge, described as action game platform for one player, themes medieval legends, original price £7.95, and other platforms Amstrad CPC, Commodore 64. Average magazine score on this one was just 70.86 from 7 reviews, but it did get CMVG style game, a PCG hit. Includes the following music: John Philip Sousa, Liberty Bell March. Okay, interesting. I did like the look of this one. I picked it because it did very much look like a Manic Miner sort of game, which is right up my alley, to be honest with you. There's also a remark down the bottom here which makes me laugh. It says, when the game loaded, the first thing it did was pretend to crash, which is potentially dangerous, isn't it, really? If you click on the drawer and you think, oh, it's crashed, and you turn it off. That's actually quite amusing. I'm looking forward to checking that out, actually, and seeing that, because I didn't notice it when I was playing it for the video, so I was probably not really concentrating, because obviously I work hard on these videos. I have to be as quick as possible with something, so I'm not the best at observing that sort of stuff, but now I know to look for it. I'm definitely going to look for it next time. Anyway, on to the review. Another crash review. This one just again missed out slightly on a crash smash. Actually, I thought 86% would have got it a crash smash, to be honest, but it didn't get one. But I've just given the score away there, but I'm sure you've already looked at the score anyway, so it doesn't really matter, does it? Let's read the review. It says, with overtones of Monty Python, Life of Brian, in the wrathful hand of God striking death by lightning to the careless games player, that's a mouthful, Brian Bloodax sets out on a quest full of primary imbalance. The Edge have abandoned synergy, whatever that was, for a more imbalanced start. I didn't quite understand the start of this review, but maybe it'll become clearer in a bit. Don't worry, when after the animated title screen has finished doing its thing, the program crashes. Observant computer owners will notice that the Sinclair logo has become a bit moth-eaten and realise that everything is okay-yar. Soon, the familiar Monty Python theme music comes up and you're away. Away to where, you may wonder? Well, the inlay doesn't help much on purpose, as it states clearly enough. Brian Bloodax is a Viking Rip Van Winkle who has been woken up after being stuck in an ice block for hundreds of years. On reawakening, he decides to do what he originally set out to do. I guess that should be originally, and conquer Britain, except now it's 1983 a period piece as you see. Through 104 screens of platform-inspired jumping, Brian must steal the crown jewels and sit on the throne. The screens are variously designed. One of the early ones is a snooker table complete with killer balls, for instance, and require jumping skills. Some objects can be picked up and used, like the triangle on the same screen, which keeps the snooker balls away. It can also be placed usefully and acts as a jumping platform. The larger of the hazards can be used similarly, like the duck whose back is broad and safe as long as you walk fast enough to keep up, but watch the beak. Primary imbalance seems to be a highly sophisticated programming method whereby things don't always work as you expect. Water drowns, for instance, but Brian has a fine line in walking on water as long as he keeps bouncing. On the other hand, primary imbalance may be nothing more sophisticated than a game frustration factor, depending on how you look at it. The ability to pick up objects and use them, Brian can only carry 3 at a time, does make Brian Bloodax into more than just a platform game, as the uses of objects are critical to success and the throne. That's a fairly short review actually. I thought it was going to go on for longer, but there's a lot of criticisms to read through, so we'll do that in a second. As ever, we'll go straight to the comments. I'm not going to go through the keys and joystick again because that was too much last time. Keyboard play responsive and simple to use. Use of colour good, varied. Graphics very good, large, well detailed and smooth. Sound excellent, continuous tune. Skill levels 1, lives 3. Screens 104. Very good to excellent. A tough thinking skill game. Use of computer 85, graphics 86, playability 89, getting started 78, addictive qualities 89, value for money 86, and overall 86%. So that's a pretty good review there. Must admit, quite a confusing review. I didn't really understand a lot of that, to be honest with you. They were the way that was phrased and stuff was quite confusing to me. I don't know if you guys struggled to follow along with that one, but yeah, very weird. Let's read the criticisms. Brian Bloodax claims to have a primary imbalance which suggests that anything could happen, and this is certainly the case. The Monty Python music also indicates this is no ordinary game. BB is one of the arcade adventure type games, which these days seem to be the games, and require thought as well as the customary skills. It has all sorts happening in it. To name a few, I found I could walk on the back of nasties, but die if I met their path. Quite logical. But when jumping off a ledge onto another, it decided to move away, leading Brian to a watery grave. Quite illogical. So my advice is to expect anything. The idea of collecting objects to use as help, as seen in Night Law, is seen here too. Bloodax is an excellent game which is representative of the high class software which is being produced today. So next criticism says, straight to the point, Brian Bloodax is sort of souped up platform game with a few major differences. The main one being that the objects you collect play an important role in performing another or several actions. Also, not everything that moves is deadly. Did you know that sharks are safer from behind than head on? Well yeah, it's pretty simple, isn't it? The graphics are excellent and sound is fab with a rare but appreciated continuous tune that doesn't appear to affect the movement of graphics at all. The game is certainly fun to play, though I think the platform idea has been a bit overworked and should be given a rest. But with that said, Brian Bloodax is still a truly marvellous think and a game which I don't think the Edge could improve upon. I think primary imbalance refers to the hyperload. I had enough problems with that, or maybe the game is played better when you balance upside down on one finger, okay? There's me saying in the last video I picked the Crash reviews because they're more serious, but this one is a bit of a chore to read, to be honest with you. I think I've discovered what primary imbalance is. It is that it takes so many attempts to load it, then you just try the other side just for luck and it loads straight away. I think it has to be one of the most infuriating games I've ever played. This is a different criticism, by the way, clearly. It has good graphics and sound. Everything is well drawn and moves well, apart from the rhinos. And the only thing lacking is the instructions. But there are some, and they are not intended to help at all, so bird brains have to work it all out for themselves. Okay, so that last criticism isn't really in keeping with the rest of them, but overall I think they gave it a positive. I mean, that review is very confusing to me, so maybe I should have picked a different one, but I don't read them before I pick them, that's quite clear, so there we have it. But hopefully it made more sense to you than it did to me, and I'm looking forward to giving Brian Bloodax a go. It does sound definitely very interesting. Game number 3 is Action Force 2, also known as Action Force 2 International Heroes, released in 1988 by Virgin Games Limited. When I saw this one, I thought it looked like a Codemasters kind of style game personally, but Virgin Games apparently. Described as arcade game shoot 'em up for one player, features button mashers, in-game mini-games, multicolour rainbow graphics. Interesting. And it was $8.95 when it was released, or £14.95 on disc. Average magazine score of over 4 reviews was 88.85%, with a Crash Smash and a Your Sinclair mega game to boot. So let's take a look at Crash. This one, I like the colours on this one. I do like, I'm very much a blue and yellow kind of person, but it's quite blurry, this review, so you'll have to bear with me if I'm a bit stuttery on reading it, because it's making my eyes go funny just looking at it. Anyway, let's have a look. The city is in a state of tension mission. Terrorists backed by the evil organization Cobra have taken a number of innocent citizens hostage and are hiding them on the roof of a series of derelict downtown buildings. 2 members of the Action Force team are assigned to the mission. Their task: penetrate enemy territory, locate the hostages, and rendezvous with the Chopper, acting as air support. Quick Kick, expert in unarmed combat, attempts to scale the walls of each hideout, while Airtight, the player, provides protective cover fire. The game is divided into several levels, each of which comprises an empty apartment block. Advancing through a landscape, shattered windows, deserted fences, and graveyards of abandoned oil drums, Quick Kick makes his way slowly up a network of rickety fire escapes. Disembodied eyes peer from the windows and their owners ready to drop lethal bombs. Commando-style terrorists people the splintered doorways, and innocuous-looking bins invariably contain highly trained and heavily armed fighters. Careful positioning of his superimposed target allows Airtight to shoot them before they attack. As Quick Kick climbs each building, he loses energy. Shooting the stars and stripes visible on the walls of some screens boosts his health. You wouldn't think that would be a good thing, because you wouldn't think they would want stars and stripes being shot, but fair enough. Should energy drop to 0, one of the 3 lives is lost. A status panel shows energy remaining, current level, and score, as well as a magnifying view of the target area. Following successful completion of the first level, Airtight can choose between 3 powerful weapons: machine gun, bazooka, or biogun. Each of these have slightly different properties. The bazooka fires more slowly than the machine gun, but has a more devastating effect, while the biogun quickly and efficiently reduces its victims to skeletal remains. However complex the weapon, the ultimate fate of Quick Kick and the hostages depends on the accurate coordination of Airtight's eyes and hands. So, the comments. Graphics, superb. Every screen's packed with detail and colour. The animation and all the characters, especially the deadly dustbin men, is smooth and realistic. Sound. Although there's no title tune, the spot effects are original and atmospheric. General rating. The ultimate in protection games. Great graphics and amount of playability. The only thing it lacks is definable keys. 90% for presentation, 92 for graphics, 89 playability, 89 addictive qualities, and overall 90%. So there you go. Good marks for this game. See, I was a bit torn on whether to put this one on because I'm not particularly a fan of levels where you have to cover somebody in video games. So this is going to be one that's probably taking me slightly out of my comfort zone, but I just thought it looked really good and it did score very well as well. So I kind of figured this is one I need to give a go. As ever, let me know in the comments if you've played it before. Okay, let's read the criticisms. Action Force 2 is a definite improvement over its predecessor, 35% issue 46. Wow. Not only is presentation very polished, but the gameplay is equally smooth. Colourful graphics are detailed and effectively animated, particularly the eyes peering warily from the windows and bins as they cautiously case the joint. The action itself is highly addictive and entertaining. The target is realistically difficult to place and constantly needs a steadying hand. You have to control the gun, not just position it. The need to replenish energy as well as eliminate the enemy calls for some fast manipulation of the joystick. The whole process is made tense by the fact that the target moves more slowly than the terrorists. Movements from one end of the screen to the other, although quite swift, seem agonisingly slow. Success therefore depends on careful planning, delicate control, and a modicum of luck. The fact that it looks much easier than it actually is to complete makes it all the more compelling. Highly recommended. That was from Katie. This one's from Nick. Says, comparing this to the original Action Force game is like comparing gold to the stuff you find at the bottom of all the mugs in Crash Towers. This is absolutely fantastic. The graphics and sound are excellent and the colour is used extremely well in the game and the loading screen. 8 colours to a character square isn't bad. Action Force 2 has the novel idea of swapping the role you play. Instead of directing the main character that appears on screen, you play yourself and have to cover your compatriot with a wide selection of guns. Some of the larger targets in the game, such as the choppers, tanks and prison cells, are full of detail and do take some bashing. When you miss a baddie and he kills your little friend, you have to start that level all over again, which does get a bit tedious, but whichever level you're on, there's plenty to do, like electrocuting the hitmen and blowing up the dustbins. Action Force 2 is a brilliant, action-packed game. Buy it today. Paul says, this is a tremendous improvement over Action Force. The graphics, the main drawing point of the game, are incredibly detailed and coloured, bringing back memories of Dan Dare, also by Virgin Games. It's good to see the programmers using the Spectrum well, as all aspects are exploited to the full. Even the game perspective is a bit different from most. You don't go out looking for trouble, it finds you. The game features many interesting enemies, from the maniac dustbins to irate building inhabitants who throw weights out of the windows. It's bound to be a great game for high-scoring arcade players, though I doubt the addictiveness will last as long among the rest of us. Yes, definitely a very colourful, extremely nice looking game, and although it does contain an element of gameplay that I'm not usually a fan of, I always like to be persuaded otherwise. otherwise. They are generally my least favourite levels in games when it's like, you know, you're with a sniper rifle and you've got to protect people. I know it's not the sniper rifle necessarily in this game, but you know what I mean. It's like one of those levels when you know it's coming and you think, oh no, you know, because it feels like one wrong move. You feel pressured, don't you? You know what I mean? To keep your friend alive. I prefer to worry about my own health in games than worry about somebody else's. So yeah, it's a bit of a gamble, this one, I guess, in terms of like what I like necessarily, but definitely going to give it a go, and it looks very good. Let me know if you've played it. Game 4 on this list, Jonah Barrington Squash, released in 1985 by New Generation Software. Obviously sports game, maximum players 2, features beeper speech. Interesting. Sports squash, as I think would be obvious, and it released for £7.95 on Amstrad CPC, Commodore 64, and from 9 reviews it averaged 70%. So not mind blowing, but I did say, you know, that the games I was picking for this list were not necessarily going to be all like complete stunners. It's more games that were underappreciated, and I think as a sports game this has been underappreciated as far as I know. I mean, there may have been a few that went under the radar, but I don't remember any other squash games. I went through a period actually when I was at school when we used to go to a squash court and we used to play a bit of squash, and I got into it quite a lot, but I never played much of this game, and I owned it. So this is the only one on this list that we actually owned, me and my brother, but I don't really remember playing much of it. I think the main sprites on it looked a bit like the Match Point characters, and I guess if it came to it I'd probably think, well, I would rather play Match Point, you know. So that was the reason why I didn't play much of it, to be honest with you, but certainly would like to give it a go, and I do remember playing a bit of it and remember enjoying it, so I'll definitely be giving this a go. Let's have a look at Crash review on this one. Nice to get a black and white review. Makes it a little bit easier for me to read, to be honest with you. The game of squash is usually thought of as a wealthy young businessman's game and has generally failed to capture the public eye as much as, say, tennis. There's also an argument as to which is the more skillful. As somebody who played a bit of squash when I was a kid, yeah, squash is hard. It's very hard. The ball just whizzes around it. It's very hard. I would definitely prefer to play tennis personally, but you know, that's I don't play a lot of that either really, but when I played tennis and I played squash, tennis was definitely my favourite. New Generation have joined forces with one of Britain's leading squash players, Jonah Barrington, to develop the simulation which closely follows the real thing and may give you the opportunity to make up your own mind about squash. The actual game is played between two in a closed court, using back and side walls to return the ball on the rebound. The rules of the game are well described on the game's inlay card, which points out where the simulation differs from the real thing. Squash can be played by one person against a computer or by two players simultaneously using defined keys or twin joystick control if you have the right interface. There are 4 levels of difficulty, red to yellow, selected by the Spectrum colour keys. In play, the control is not unlike that of Match Point. Directional keys moving your player, while the fire button makes the forehand or backhand stroke, whichever is appropriate to the player and ball position at the time. The angle at which the ball leaves the racket is determined by the length of time you keep the fire depressed, and there are 6 possible angles. The other variable in play is the point at which your swing intercepts the ball, which affects the speed of its travel. The screen display consists of 2 equal areas, the playing area depicting the 3D court on the left and the status panel on the right with the score and service information. In addition to the visual scoring, Malcolm Evans has developed a way of reproducing Jonah Barrington's voice very accurately, and he can be heard calling out the scores. I didn't actually know that was Jonah Barrington on that, to be honest with you. And to the comments. Use of colour, sober, mostly greys and blacks, but works well. Graphics very good, fast and colourful, excellent bouncing of ball. Sound generally simple, ball noises, and the amazing sound of Jonah Barrington's voice. 4 skill levels, special features, repro sound, that must be the thing they invented for this game. General rating, a difficult but absorbing simulation that should appeal heavily to sports games enthusiasts, but probably has a wider appeal as well. Use to computer 86, graphics 84, playability 89, getting started 88, addictive qualities 85, value for money 82, and overall 87%. So good scores on this one. And it only averaged 70 over the magazine reviews, so must have had a few stinking reviews in there, to be honest with you, considering, you know, 87 is a strong start. The one thing that bothers me about this though is that it seems to be that like, the review is shorter than the criticisms. So we'll see on that one. Squash is not unlike Match Point. 2 players and a ball with rackets, although being squash, it's played indoors. The graphic representation of this game is extremely good, and I love the way the ball bounces about with a sort of sodden feel to it. Quite realistic. The animation is good and again realistic, although on the forwards/backwards movement do I detect some Trashman style walking. The only real niggle I have about this game is I found it very difficult to actually hit the ball. I'm sure it wasn't my fault, but the racket was a little too small. The voice reproduction is very good, although I found it difficult to hear without my Fandabby Dozy Super Blaster radio amplifier. For assembly instructions on this Super Uffindel contraption, please send £50 too. Okay. You know me, I don't like the jokes in it, so I don't get it, and it's like, what the heck? Of course, you have to be interested in squash or tennis type games in the first place to enjoy it to the full, but a good simulation anyhow. Next criticism says, this is a very elegant and polished program with speedy, clear graphics that simulate real squash court very well. Given the obvious limitations of a small computer, New Gen have managed to convince me completely. One thing becomes clear immediately, however. Jonah Barrington squash isn't a game to get into in minutes. It takes a lot of practice to get familiar with the action of the ball and to get your swing in good shape. If you like sports simulations, it's a must for your collection and a game I think you'll be playing for a long time to come. I think that might explain why me and my brother didn't play a lot of this, because we weren't very good at it. Maybe we found it a bit too difficult. I think when you're a kid, you don't persevere as much, do you, when a game's difficult? Maybe if it's on something you really love, say me and my brother were struggling on match day 2, for example, we would have stuck at that because it's football. When it's a niche sport like squash, if it's difficult, you're not really going to stick to it, are you? That's the way I feel anyway. That's probably the way it was for us. And the last criticism says, anyone enjoy playing Match Point will enjoy this game as much for the differences as for the similarities. The graphics are simple looking but work beautifully, and the effect of the bouncing ball with its shadow is excellent. The option of playing the computer or another person at the same time is very useful and gives the game an added addictive quality, with both players trying to win and being unwilling to give up. This is hard to get into though, and a fair bit of skill needs to be developed before realistically satisfactory games can be played with any ease. Well worth the effort though. So yeah, I think we're seeing the reasons there why I probably didn't stick to this game when I was a kid, because it was probably a little bit too hard and I could probably play a game of Match Point and enjoy it more, so probably decided not to go back to it, but I can't remember. But I think as an adult, again, I would stick to it more, plus also I'd be going into it knowing these things maybe a bit more, that it was going to be tricky, so again, more of a reason to stick to it really, and I think I'm definitely going to give this game a go. And finally we have Sir Lancelot, released in 1984 by Melbourne House. The genre is arcade platform. This one did remind me a lot of Manic Miner, to be fair, just looking at it. Actually probably more Jet Set Willy than Manic Miner. Original price £5.95, themes medieval legends, as you'd expect from the title. Also released on Amstrad CPC, that was it, which is unusual that they didn't get a Commodore 64 version of this game, but there you go. Average magazine score for this one over 5 reviews was 82%, and it received a crash smash, which we're about to look at right now. I like the review of this one. This is the clearest review I've had so far. It's nice and easy to read, this one, although I'll probably still fluff it because that's just how I am. I've also still got my scratchy throat, so I'm really coughing today. The amount of editing I got to do on these is crazy, but anyway, here we go. Here's the first game from Melbourne House's new Studio B, based in England. Your task in this manic platformish game is to investigate 24 rooms in the castle and collect all the things of use to you as you go. This is obviously the kind of useless existence that King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table enjoyed, seeking, collecting and getting killed off. Although principally a platform style game, Sir Lancelot has many variations on the different screens, ladders, stairs, towers, hidey holes and all sorts of things. Because of the combination and placing of collectible objects and hazards, strategy becomes an important element in the game. Even when all the objects have been collected, you cannot clear a screen until you reach the flashing exit, which appears when the last object is taken. There is a large playing area with score lines and animated lives remaining running along beneath. That's it for the review, so that's a pretty short review there. Let's read the comments. Keyboard play very responsive, nice simple keys, use of colour excellent, graphics excellent, sound very good, skill levels 1, lives 4, screens 24. It says special features and then it doesn't say anything, so I don't know. I guess there were no special features. General rating, an addictive, playable game, good to excellent value. Use of computer 90, graphics 89, playability 88, getting started 93, addictive qualities 89, value for money 90, and overall 90%. Pretty good scores. Okay, so we'll go to the first criticism, which is it's almost as long as the review, to be honest with you. The first criticism, it doesn't bode well, I guess, but after watching someone else play this game, I was determined to do better than that person. That just goes to show the competitiveness of this game. So Lancelot is a well animated knight that has some amazing powers of jumping and running around the screen. Collecting the jewels can be an easy task or a difficult difficult tasks depending on the screen layout and on the moving hazards, but as a general rule it gets progressively more difficult and more thought needs to be put into each screen and reactions need to get sharper. Colours have been used very well to give various shades, all very pleasing to the eye and very clear. The graphics are of a nice size and also very detailed. One thing I especially like are your spare lives hanging about at the bottom of the screen waiting to be used, pacing impatiently from side to side in boredom. I found Sir Lancelot incredibly addictive, and just the sheer fact of wanting to see the next screen made me play the game even more. I can well recommend this game to anyone. This is the best 16K game I've seen in a long time, has all the graphics and playability of Manic Miner and 4 more screens as well. The knight you play moves around well and very fast, as do the other characters. You have to time your jumps and work out a routine through each screen. I have one main criticism, and that is that you are given a very short time to finish the screen, but apart from that I enjoy playing Sir Lancelot very much. Sir Lancelot is rather a surprise from Melbourne House, who seem to have been more interested in the state-of-the-art games in a way, for this isn't really that at all. What it is a very fast, cleverly torturous Manic Miner style game with neat, smooth, detailed graphics and some interesting variations on the theme of avoiding nasties. There's plenty here to play with, 24 screens each, more of a test than the last, and like Manic Miner, once you get good with the rhythm of a screen you can show off to your friends. Very addictive, very playable, very good. So there we go, slightly shorter on this one because the review's pretty short, but I didn't realize actually it was a 16K game, so that's really cool, and it does remind me a lot of Manic Miner and Jet Set Willy for sure. So definitely a game that's right up my alley. I would imagine a lot of you have probably played this game before. Probably a lot of you have played all these games on the list. They're underrated to me because I don't know that much about any of them, to be honest with you. The only one I'd heard of previously was Jonah Barrington Squash. I hadn't really heard of any of these games before researching. So to me, they're underappreciated because I don't know them. But maybe to you, you think, well, I know all about these games. They're brilliant. I've played them all before. I've told you. Maybe you've even said in the comments about some of these games. So if you have, I apologise. But I do get a lot of comments, so sometimes it's quite hard to keep up. But from what I could gather, not many people were talking much about these games. And I think this definitely looks like one that's right up my alley. And I'm very much looking forward to having a go of it. So there we go. That's 5 underappreciated gems I've barely played I would add to the spectrum. Those games again are Deactivators, Bloodax, Action Force 2, Jonah Barrington Squash, and Sir Lancelot. I hope you've enjoyed the video. As ever, in the comments below, let me know your memories on these games, because obviously I couldn't really provide that perspective on this video. For a change, you know me, I like to talk about my memories on things and stuff, but for these ones, not so much of a memory. The only one I've really played anything of is Jonah Barrington Squash, and even then I can't remember much about it at all because we weren't very good at it, I think, so we gave up on it pretty early. But other than that, I haven't really played any of these games, and they all look very good. So I did a bit of research on this one to find a few games that, you know, I'd never actually heard of that were good. It's quite hard to do that actually, because you can't actually put into a search engine, name me some Spectrum games that I've never heard of, because obviously, you know, Google's going to go, well, I don't know your brain. So, you know, I had to do a little bit of research on this one and find a few. I didn't want blockbusters as such. I wanted sort of mid-range games. And I think we got high-end games, to be honest with you, but not like, you know, top of the range, you know. So that was the point of this video, really. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. If you have, really do appreciate it. If you've got any ideas for videos that you want me to do on the channel, let me know. You know, I'm always open to doing videos for people. I don't want to keep banging out the same stuff. I'm trying to do some different ones. But obviously, I've got to enjoy doing the video first and foremost, because otherwise, you know, I would come across as a grumpy old sod, wouldn't I? So, you know, but any ideas, I'm open to suggestions. That will be great. And as ever, obviously, your comments on this one, much appreciated. Thanks a lot, everybody, for the support. As always, take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.